Hi folks, and welcome to Tiny Kitchen. We're pretty sure this is the smallest space to ever be featured in a cooking show, and we're so glad that you could come and join us here. We have 18 inches of counter space in this room, and if we can cook it here, folks, you can cook it anywhere. Did you catch yesterday on our Tiny Kitchen Facebook page our Riddle Me This question for this week? What is yellow and makes you warm inside and out? We're going to feature it today. It's fragrant soup, and you're going to love this recipe. This is so easy to make, but you can serve this to friends, guests, you can serve this to your mother-in-law, and you're going to get brownie points that you can't even begin to imagine. Now this recipe starts with a very simple to make but delicious chicken broth. When you see how easy this is to make, and when you taste how wonderful it hits your tongue, you're going to wonder why you ever spent money on that crap in the grocery store. Now the chicken broth can be made ahead of time. It can be portioned out and stored in the refrigerator. I recommend keeping some of this on hand all the time because so many recipes use chicken broth. Now today's recipe is RFL friendly to those of you on the Fat Free With Me program. That means it's conducive to rapid fat loss and a great addition to your repertoire of recipes to use. Let's get started right away on our chicken broth, and let's look at the simple ingredients that it takes. Folks, you're not going to believe this. That's right. Can you believe that? All it takes to make the most delicious chicken broth is a bunch of coarsely chopped celery, a coarsely chopped medium yellow onion, a few spices, 4 cloves of garlic, and of course, 4 boneless, skinless chicken breasts. All right, I've already started our water boiling. There's 8 cups of water in our stock pot. The first thing we're going to do is add to that 1 bunch of coarsely chopped celery and 1 coarsely chopped medium yellow onion. Let's go ahead and get that started. Now if you remember last week, we talked about spices and how you don't want to put spices in too early. If we add our spices to the water right now, the parts of that spice that are volatile, and they're called volatiles, will start to go and cook off of our finished broth, and we don't want that. We want our broth to be very rich and spicy. So we're not going to put the spices in yet. We are, however, going to go ahead and put our garlic in. Now on our garlic, all we've done to each clove is just make one kind of rough cut along lengthwise, and we make this cut rough on purpose. What we want is a lot of edge for the oils of the garlic to go into the broth, but we're going to strain the vegetables out later, so we don't want to mince the garlic or make it hard to retrieve later. So just one kind of rough broken cut down lengthwise on each piece of garlic is all we're going to do on this one. And at this point we're going to go ahead and add our chicken breasts in as well. There's 4 of them for 8 cups of water. So you want 1 chicken breast for each 2 cups of water. What that's going to do is it's going to give us just enough water to cover the chicken breast and the vegetables and let everything stew in there really, really nice. Now we're going to allow this water to heat up and boil, and as soon as it boils, we're going to turn the heat back to simmer, and we're going to leave it in the pot covered after it starts to simmer, and we're going to leave it to steep for about an hour, and then we'll come right back to you. Okay, what we've done is we've brought the broth to a boil. I reduced the heat to simmer, put a lid on, and we've been simmering for about 1 hour. Now is the time to put our spices in. And I wish you could smell what I smell right now. We haven't put a single spice in this dish and it already smells so good. What we're going to add right now is 3 things. We're going to add ground black pepper, Tiny Kitchen celery salt, and this stuff is to die for, and turmeric. We're going to put these in and mix them up, and then we're going to allow our broth to simmer for another 30 minutes with the spice inside. And you can see it's turning that beautiful yellow color right now. That comes from the turmeric, and the flavor is just amazing too. And then we'll be back to process this in just 30 minutes. So here we have a strainer inside of a plastic catch bowl, and we're going to use this apparatus to strain the vegetables out of our broth. Before we do that though, let's bring this beautiful broth over, and especially now with the spices inside, oh my goodness, this is amazing. And it smells just heavenly. And you remember what we said in our Riddle Me This? What's yellow smells like heaven and warms you inside and out. Well, you're getting an idea now. The turmeric will have colored our chicken, so you're going to notice when we pull the chicken pieces out, they're going to be looking yellow. We're going to use these later in other dishes. We're not going to use it in the soup today, but this has the delicious flavor of the broth cooked right into the chicken, and we can use it for any number of dishes later on. So let's go ahead and take out our 4 pieces of chicken first. With a spice like turmeric in the world, you wonder why anybody in processed food uses yellow food coloring for anything. All they really need is a hit or two of turmeric. And you should know too, this spice has been the most researched of any food product on earth for its health benefits. It's been documented as a useful tool in fighting cancer, in working with diabetes, in working with thyroid dysfunction, colon issues, and any number of other health issues. Turmeric in your diet is always a very good thing. So we're going to set the chicken aside. Now we're going to take our soup out. We'll put in our catch bowl and our strainer, and working as carefully as we can, we'll see if we can pour our soup into this apparatus. Then we'll lift our strainer out and allow it to drain. And here is the most delicious chicken broth. Now, if you make your broth ahead of time, this is where you'll stop. You can now portion this out. You can put it in the refrigerator. You can freeze it for later use. You can do whatever you like. There's about 8 cups of broth in the bowl right now. We're going to use 6 of it for our soup later on, and we'll store the remaining 2 in the freezer. So I'm going to take care of that, and then when it's dinner time tonight, we'll come back and we'll make the most delicious, fragrant soup you can imagine, and you will not believe that this is friendly for a weight loss program. All right, catch you in a little bit. Okay, we're back and it's dinner time. Now, we made our chicken broth earlier, and if you remember, it only took 10 minutes of prep time and about an hour and a half of waiting for it to boil and simmer, during which you can be doing other things. It takes very little time to make this, and it's so good. And that's going to provide the broth or the soup for the fragrant soup that we're just about to make. And you're going to see right away, what we're going to make right now is just as easy. So if you make the broth the day before or the weekend before, make the soup on any given week diet. It's super easy, super delicious, a fabulous way to lose weight. So let's get started. Here's our ingredients for the soup. See, this is super easy. All we have is 1 bok choy, large bok choy. If you use baby bok choy, use 4 or maybe even 5. 1 bok choy, a little bit of Tiny Kitchen India Dream Spice, part 1, and India Dream Spice part 2. Why part 1 and 2? We're going to talk about that in just a minute. 1 medium onion minced, half a medium onion, excuse me, and a few pieces of ginger sliced very, very thin. This is about 3/4 of an inch of ginger sliced thin. We have 2 Thai hot peppers, sliced once lengthwise. And then we're going to have 2 pieces of this nice, luscious tilapia. Many of you have asked me, how do I fix tilapia in a tasty way? You're about to find out an amazing way to cook this wonderful, wonderful whitefish. And of course, we're going to be using our chicken broth from earlier. Now let me make one note about cutting bok choy. We cut bok choy 2 different ways. The leafy part of the bok choy, we just cut into large chunks, as you see back here. Those take very little time to cook. In fact, we're going to put them in at the very end, just give them time to wilt. And then there's the stem of the bok choy. This takes a little longer to cook because you want to get it soft. It's kind of fibrous and tough. So we cut those into these little crescents, and we're going to put those in relatively early in the dish so that they have time to cook down and become soft. Let's go over now to our stovetop. All right, you remember how I showed you a minute ago we use India Dream Spice Part 1 and Part 2. Tiny Kitchen takes the usual curry spices and we divide them into 2 parts. And I'll show you why. I'm going to go ahead now and turn our heat up. Now you'll notice this is an empty pan. There's nothing in it. I've got the heat on medium and I'm going to let it go ahead and heat up. You want to divide your curry spices into 2 parts. People are familiar with curry powder, but that's not the way to get the most out of the spice. Some of the curry spices are made out of seeds. Other parts of the curry spices are made out of powdered roots or other things. You want to take the seeds, and that's this dish here, and you want to heat the seeds in the pan before anything else goes in. You're going to notice there's mustard seed, coriander seed, cumin seed, and a couple of others. There's also a leaf from the curry tree. Don't get confused here. Curry spice does not come from a curry tree, but the curry leaf is very common in South Indian cooking because of its very unique flavor, especially in soups. If you can't find curry leaf, and usually you can spot it at Indian stores, but if you can't find it, feel free to use a basil leaf here instead. Now, our pan is hot right away because there's nothing in it, so I'm going to go ahead and put the seed in. Now, what you're going to notice when you put the seed, shake it around just a little bit, is right away your kitchen is going to fill up with just this amazing smell. Right away. You want to let that smell develop. Let these seeds heat until they just begin to pop and your kitchen just becomes doused in this heavenly, heavenly smell. So let's go ahead and shake that around, just this part of it for now. Nothing else in the pan. Okay, already. Oh, wow, already that's heavenly. So at this point, we're going to take just 1 cup of our broth, 1 cup only, and we're going to put into the pan so that we don't burn our seeds. Now you see how that coughs and spits a little bit, right? Be careful when you put it in. You don't want to burn yourself. And then we'll just shake that around just enough. And still, you can smell that heavenly, heavenly divine scent coming out of the pan. Now at this point, we're going to put in some of our heartier items. We're going to put in our Thai peppers, our ginger coils, our onion. Oh, I got one of my bok choy leaves in there, but that's okay. And we're going to put in the bottom of the bok choys because we want that to cook down, remember? Once we have that in, we're going to provide just enough of the chicken broth to cover this mixture. You don't want too much. We're not trying to dilute it. Oh, look at that beautiful chicken broth. Seriously, once you taste this, you'll wonder why you've ever bought store-bought broth. No artificial chemicals, no artificial preservatives, nothing but real, healthy, wholesome goodness right here. Now, We want this to cook down a little bit, so I'm going to go ahead and put a lid on it. And we'll allow that to cook for 15 minutes on medium. Okay, with the time elapsed, if you have any wonder why this is called fragrant soup, right now I wish I had smell-o-vision here in Tiny Kitchen so you could smell what I'm smelling. I am in heaven right now. Okay, we've simmered for 15 minutes, given the flavors a chance to really come together. We're going to stir that a little bit, and now we're going to put in Tiny Kitchen India Dream Part 2. Now remember, the first part are the seeds. You put in, you heat them up until they just make your kitchen smell like heaven. And then the second part goes in later. Remember, not all spices go in early because a certain part of the spice will cook out a flavor that you want to keep. So we're going to take India Dream Part 2 and we're going to sprinkle it into our soup now. Make sure it's fully mixed in. And now we're going to add our tilapia. Now, this method of cooking fish is called poaching. It allows our fish to stay very, very moist and to absorb a great deal of flavor. We're going to put our fish right on top of the liquid. It won't hit the bottom and stick or burn because we have the heavy parts of the bok choy at the bottom of the pan. That'll keep it elevated just so we get that wonderful steam coming around our fish. So with them partially submerged, we're going to leave that in the skillet until our fish is almost completely cooked. Now let me tell you the secret to whitefish. If whitefish gets overcooked, it becomes very dry, sometimes very tough, and really not very tasty at all. You want it to just barely be done. And then it's moist, it's tender, it's flaky, and it allows all the natural flavor of the fish and the surroundings that we put it in to come through for you. So we're going to allow this to cook just until our fish starts to become opaque. When it starts to become opaque, we know it's going to be almost done to the core, and it'll finish cooking while we take the next step of our soup. Let's give that just a few minutes, okay? While it's doing so, remember the #1 rule of Tiny Kitchen? When you're working in a very, very small space, cleanliness is everything. And in between our steps, we take a few moments to wash whatever dishes are dirty. Now, it doesn't take long to wash dishes this way. When the dishes are warm, they're very easy to clean. There's only a very few at a time. We can wash them, we can put them in a drainer to drain out later. And then when we're done cooking, we already have a clean kitchen. So after we eat, there's no big mess to come in and clean up. What is cooler than that? Because the only part of cooking that really sucks is the cleanup, right? So if we clean up as we go, bam, cleanup done, kitchen is easy. After we eat, we just have a few dishes that people ate off of to eat, and everything is just wonderful that way. All right, we'll be right back in a minute, just as soon as this fish is done. It's going to take about 10 minutes. Okay, with our fish almost done, it's time to take the next step. We're going to turn down the heat so that we stop this boil. And we're going to add in the top part of the bok choy leaf. Now remember, our goal with the top part is only to get them wilted. We don't want them to overcook because they get kind of soggy and just not all that good. So we're going to put the leaf in, and then we're going to add broth up to the top of the pan. Just barely cover the leaf. And all we're going to do at this point is heat it long enough for the broth to become hot. The broth that we just put in. There'll be 6 cups total with this in here. And as soon as the broth becomes hot to the top, the leaf will be wilted and the soup will be ready to serve. Oh gosh, I really, really wish you could smell this. I know I keep saying this. When you cook with Indian spices, and this is critically important, don't get curry powder. Make sure that the seeds stay seeds and the ground elements stay ground. And when you heat up the seeds in your pan over medium heat before you add any of the liquid, those seeds start to pop. You'll know they start to pop because you can smell it all through your house. It's amazing. It's just like heaven. And as soon as that happens and you put your liquid in, now the flavor from that seed is able to go through your entire dish, and it tastes so, so incredibly delicious. If you do it this way, you don't lose any of the flavor to oxidation. As soon as you get those seeds ground, you expose them to oxygen, to oxidation. And now that might be good for some dishes, but for the delicate, delicate nature of Indian flavoring, you want to make sure that you get the whole full range that that seed has to offer. And there it is, fragrant soup. What's yellow, smells like heaven, and warms you inside and out? Fragrant soup, that's what. And when you make this and you see how easy it is to make such a delicious dish you'll be proud to serve to anyone, your friends and your family, you're going to be amazed that this helps you lose weight. Now last week we talked about presentation, and you remember we got a beautiful wooden bowl to serve our tacos in. Presentation is important, and part of presentation can be garnishment. In the case of soup, it's in a bowl. What's exciting about a bowl? So choose a garnish that complements the complexity of the flavor of the soup and the smell of the soup so that people are drawn to it. In this case, I've got just the thing. We're going to use a sprig of mint. The smell of the mint in the hot soup is going to accent perfectly the flavors that your guests are about to experience and that your family's about to experience. If you choose to chew the mint afterward, it's going to freshen your breath and leave that coolness in your mouth. Because don't forget, there's 2 Thai chilies in here. This soup packs a punch. The coolness of the mint can help to break that down when you're done eating the soup. Wonderful, wonderful idea. You might want to keep it on hand for you. Folks, that's Tiny Kitchen for tonight. If you're interested in the Fat Free With Me weight loss program, learning more or getting your questions answered, please visit our website at fatfreewithme.com. If you're interested in the Tiny Kitchen line of spice blends, for now, we should have our store open by this time next week. But for now, please drop us an email, customercare@fatfreewithme.com. Let us know what you're interested in, and we'll get right back to you and get your order filled as quickly as possible. You won't be disappointed. This is the finest spice blend line to complement the freshest, most delicious cooking for weight loss that you can possibly imagine. For now, that's it. My name is Belden Colm. From the smallest kitchen ever to be featured in a cooking show, this is Tiny Kitchen.